Namaste friends. In this video I will talk about a couple of upcoming eclipses. I will talk about the timings when the eclipses are coming and the visibility of those eclipses, and also share a few words about doing spiritual sadhana during eclipses, and give some guidance on the Diwali Lakshmi Pooja, and I will talk about the effect on individuals as well as effect on the world in general and world leaders, some prominent world leaders. And in the end, I will suggest some prayers, and I will actually chant the prayers here so that those who can't chant by themselves can simply play the video and listen to it. First, the timings of the eclipses. There is a partial solar eclipse on October 25. In terms of the US East Coast time, it is 4:58 a.m. to 9:02 a.m. In terms of India time, it is 2:28 p.m. to 6:32 p.m. And there is a total lunar eclipse on November 8th. This is the US election day, and this is the Diwali day. And this is from 3:02 a.m. to 8:56 a.m. So basically, before it starts before the sunrise and it ends after the sunrise. This is East Coast time of US, and in India it will be afternoon, 1:32 to 7:26. So the eclipse will be visible at the sunrise time in the evening. Now let us look at which parts of the world these eclipses are visible. The Deepavali eclipse, October 25 eclipse, the partial solar eclipse, is visible in these areas that are mentioned here. In this darker portion, it is completely visible, and unfortunately, much of Europe is covered, including Ukraine, which is suffering from a major war. So I'll talk about it later, but this is where the eclipse is visible. But one note, I mentioned in previous videos also, lunar eclipse affects only where it is visible, but solar eclipse can affect the entire world, not only where it is visible, because the idea is sun is like the soul and moon is like the mind. So our minds resonate to other minds when they are in the vicinity, but soul is connected, so it can resonate basically in the entire cosmos. So solar eclipse has a longer influence range. So bottom line is, people living in other parts of the world also can do some spiritual sadhana during this eclipse. As for the total lunar eclipse of November 8th, the US election day, it is visible in these portions. The white areas in the white areas it is completely visible, entire eclipse, and in these partial gray areas it is visible partly, basically visible at the moon set or at the moon rise. As I said, in India it starts in the afternoon, and then in the evening when moon is rising it will be visible. And these portions, much of Africa, is not visible at all. So like I said earlier, observe the lunar eclipse, it is visible in your area, but solar eclipse, observe it irrespective. Now a couple of words on doing spiritual sadhana during eclipses. In some spiritual teachers have taught that during eclipses you can do spiritual sadhana, and it is thousands times more effective than at normal times. At the same time, temples are closed during eclipses, so some people may be wondering about the contradiction here. The idea is this: Dharma is represented by sun and moon. They are the eyes of the cosmic being, the Purusha who personifies the entire cosmos. They are the eyes of the Parama Purusha. In other words, soul and mind. As I said, sun and moon represent soul and mind. So those are the eyes through which we see the world. So that is the basic idea. So the eyes maintain dharma. So sun and moon are important for maintaining dharma in the world. And Rahu, he shows kama, shows desires and fulfilling desires at any cost. And Ketu, he shows moksha. He shows not really caring about anything, not having any desires. So Rahu and Ketu show too many desires and total lack of desires. whereas sun and moon are dharma. So at the time of eclipse, Rahu and Ketu are creating problem to sun and moon. They are troubling sun and moon. So it's not a good time for dharmic activities, maintaining order in the world. So temples and other places where dharmic activities are done as a regular practice, those are basically stopped during this time. But at the same time, if you want to do some kamya sadhana, which means a ritual to get certain results, which is basically Rahu thing, or you just want to do spiritual sadhana to make spiritual progress, become more detached, which is a Ketu thing. In those cases, because Rahu and Ketu are strong, they really enjoy troubling sun and moon. Rahu enjoys troubling them because he just wants to get what he wants. So he doesn't care about order in the world, maintaining some order, maintaining rules, following procedures, etc. He doesn't care. And Ketu doesn't care about them because he just he is about detachment, not really caring about anything. So that's why these two are uh, this aspect. And when Rahu and Ketu cause eclipse to sun and moon, they are really excited and happy about it. So from that point of view, for kamya sadhanas as well as for making spiritual progress, this is an excellent time to do sadhana. As a matter of fact, the great Aghori Vimalananda, whose life was captured in the Aghora series of books by Dr. Robert Swoboda, he used to initiate disciples into Homa during eclipses. He used to take them outside of Pune and outside of Bombay and teach them Homa during the eclipse time. So bottom line, and like I said, some people believe that any spiritual sadhana done during eclipse is 1,000 times more effective compared to normal time. So this is a great time to do either japa or havan, homa, whatever you are interested in. So I really recommend taking advantage of this, and particularly sadhanas done for Ugra Devatas, because Rahu and Ketu are malefic planets. So sadhanas done for Ugra Devatas are more effective during this time. So I explained why temples close and these areas. And one small esoteric thing. So people wonder what is Rahu Ketu. They are not really planets. Who they stand for. The idea is this. According to Shastras, uh, Earth goes around Sun in an elliptical orbit, right? And around Earth there is an elliptical orbit in which Moon goes around Earth. So those two orbits are not in the same plane. So they intersect at 2 points. Those 2 points are represented by Rahu and Ketu. That is why they are called Chayagrahas, shadow planets. They are basically not real planets. They are abstract points where the two orbits are intersecting, two planes are intersecting. So and the thing is, like I mentioned in a previous video, Sun represents the astitva within us, the very sense of being, and Moon represents the sense of bhoktrutva, experiencing things, experiencing the world around us. And Lagna or Earth represents the kartrutva, which is basically the very sense of doing things. I exist, I am experiencing things, I am acting in this world, I am doing things. So those three are represented by Sun, Moon and Lagna. So the orbit in which Earth is going around Sun is basically the relationship between kartrutva and astitva. And the other one is, so your very sense of being, astitva, is controlling your kartrutva. It is causing the sense of I am doing things. And then bhoktrutva is going around kartrutva. So as you do things, you get the results and you experience things. So that is basically the meaning of these. And Rahu and Ketu are the intersection of these. So they basically show either getting what you want or basically going beyond this astitva and getting moksha. Now a quick word on the Deepavali Lakshmi Puja, the Diwali Lakshmi Puja guidance. Ideally, Lakshmi Puja is done at or after, slightly after sunset, and Amavasya should be active then. If Amavasya is at the sunrise time, but at the time of sunset, it is already Krishna Pratipada, That's not good. Basically, you want to make sure that Amavasya is active and it is evening, then you should do Lakshmi Puja. And also the other guidance is avoid doing the Lakshmi Puja during eclipse. It is a good idea to do it outside of eclipse, but luckily there's no clash this time. The Amavasya timing in India is October 24 5:28 p.m. till October 25 4:19 p.m. So it is basically eclipse is on October 25 afternoon, right? So clearly the puja is on October 24. So do it on October 24, but make sure you do it after 5:28 p.m. Actually, sunset is a little after this. So if you do after sunset, you are fine. So October 24, and in US also it is October 24. UK also it is October 24. Actually, much of Europe. Only in Far East like Japan, October 25 evening is the best time to do Lakshmi Puja because Amavasya is active then, and there is no eclipse going on at that time. So you can, based on these criteria, you can calculate for your place, but for much of the world, it is October 24, Monday. Now a couple of quick words on Diwali fireworks. Again, the ideal time for doing the fireworks is when Amavasya is active in the evening or night after the sunset. So typically this is the same night as Lakshmi Puja. So you can do it on October 24 night. That is the best time. And one small word, there is a lot of controversy in the previous years about pollution and health concerns with the fireworks, and even in India judiciary is getting involved in this, and people have strong passions about it. I condemn people trying to interfere with traditions, but just my 2 cents, even if some people may not like hearing it, just my 2 cents are, in the old days, fireworks served a good purpose of cleaning the environment, and for example all the sulfur used in the fireworks that basically repel insects etc. during this seasonal transition time. So it served a useful purpose. But unfortunately, many of the fireworks that we use today do use chemicals, much like everything that we use these days. The food we eat, the drinks we drink, everything is laden with chemicals, bad chemicals. So there are some undesirable chemicals in the fireworks. So what I recommend is enjoy the fireworks, but number one, instead of buying Chinese ones, try to buy local ones. And secondly, try to see who's making the fireworks and make sure that there are as few chemicals as possible. By no means I am saying fireworks are responsible for the pollution of the environment. They are the only issue. There are much bigger issues, many other issues. So I'm not coming from the environment and world point of view. I'm just coming from your health point of view, because when you do fireworks, you are inhaling that, and unfortunately many of the fireworks that people use today are not really healthy for you. So try to, in the old days, just a few decades back when I was a child, we used to actually make fireworks at home with raw ingredients, so there weren't any harmful chemicals there. But unfortunately that's not the case here, especially with fireworks that are coming from abroad. So pay attention to what is in your fireworks, and at the same time, I wish you happy Diwali, happy Deepavali, and enjoy the fireworks. Now a couple of words on the effect on individuals. The partial solar eclipse of October 25, it is particularly problematic for people with Swati Nakshatra or Visakha Nakshatra and Tula Rasi. So if you have Swati Nakshatra or Visakha Nakshatra or Tula Rasi, then be a little careful. It doesn't mean everybody with that Nakshatra or Rasi will suffer during that time. Something untoward will happen to them. Sometimes, depending on how Rahu Ketu are in your chart, what is the relationship between them and Sun and Moon in your chart, and the rest of the chart, it may even be a positive thing. It may result in some positive transformation. So don't be scared. But the thing is, because I can't give guidance individually, I'm just giving gross guidance based on gross principle, macro principles. So I just recommend being careful. But again, one more thing is, even if your moon is in one of these nakshatras or this rasi, depending on the exact longitude, it may or may not be such a big deal. If he is very close, if Rahu and Ketu are very close to natal moon, that can be a problem. So also the thing is, apart from moon's nakshatra Rasi, if you have any key planets in your chart around 8 degree or 20 degree of Aries or Libra, around in your natal chart, because at the time of this eclipse, Rahu and Ketu will be around 20 degree Aries Rahu Libra Ketu, and Sun and Moon are at 8 degrees. So in Aries, I think, yeah. So no, sorry, Libra. So, but the thing is, whether it's Aries or Libra, if it is 8 degree or 20 degree, within a few degrees from it, 2-3 degrees from it, that can be particularly problematic, or good also, good or bad, but basically they will get triggered by this eclipse. So you want to pay attention if this is the case in your chart. And similarly, for the total lunar eclipse of November 8th, people with Bharani Nakshatra or Visakha Nakshatra, they have to be extra careful. And Mesh Rasi and secondarily Tula Rasi, those people have to be particularly careful. And again, if key planets are around 20 degree Aries or Libra, because now Sun and Moon are also not at 8 degree, but they are at 20 degree. Sun in Libra and Moon in Aries. So if you have any key planets around this longitude, then be extra careful during this time. But like I said, it may be good or bad, because I can't judge it here individually. I'm just saying, be careful. There's no harm in being extra careful and doing some prayers around that time. But one key point I want to make is, it doesn't mean if you have these nakshatras or rasis or some key planets in these longitudes, it doesn't mean the world is going to fall apart. It may be a positive thing also. So don't panic. Astrology and Shastra should not be suffocating. They should not scare you. They should just make you better prepared. That's all. So be extra careful. Now, a few words on the effect on the world at large. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that these two eclipses are very destabilizing for the world. They are not really desirable in many ways. They will have an impact on the world economy. I'm afraid that the turbulence we have seen in the world economy will continue, and it may become worse after the US election. Until US election, they will try to keep it in check, but after the US election, things may get worse. But the thing is, really, compared to this eclipse, I'm more concerned about the April eclipse. In 2023 April, there is a solar eclipse that can be really terrible for US economy and the world economy. But even this eclipse can cause some turbulence in the economy. So be careful. If you are a stock investor, be careful and make sure that you know what you are doing. And the conflicts that we see around the world now, unfortunately, this eclipse may take them to the next level. Because after this eclipse, the conflicts may become worse. And let me specifically talk briefly in a couple of sentences about each of these countries. So in India, based on India's chart, there is a chance that some top political leaders of India may face some tensions. There may be some threat of violence against them. So top leaders have to be careful in India. And also there can be some social unrest engineered by foreign elements in India after this eclipse. So Indian leadership has to be careful about maintaining law and order and keeping things under control. And in China and Taiwan, in China, there'll be slowly simmering political turbulence under the surface, starting this eclipse, and for another 6 months or a year, there'll be a lot of slowly simmering tension under the surface in China politically. Even though it may not be visible to us outside of China, there'll be something going on in China, and China may become more aggressive towards Taiwan during this period. I mentioned earlier that early August was one time frame when there can be some problems between China and Taiwan, and again early November is another time frame. So in early August, Nancy Pelosi went there, and there was some tension there in the Taiwan area. So there may be more tension around this time, because Taiwan has, I think, Saturn, Moon and Rahu in Aries, and Moon is around the same longitude where this eclipse is occurring. So this is a very bad eclipse for Taiwan. So China may become more aggressive towards Taiwan. I don't think that there will be a actual actually a war at this time because there is still more time for development of a war, especially if there's a war between China and Taiwan. US will have no choice but to get involved, so this will really boil into a major war. So I think we are still a few years away from it, but a step in that direction is very likely in the early November time frame. And as far as Russia-Ukraine situation is concerned, again, this war will intensify. But the thing is, this intensification will eventually lead in a few months to the ceasing of the tensions. There may be a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine in the next early 2023, probably in the early springtime, February March time frame. Definitely after early January, after Saturn changes sign from Russia's 6th house to 7th house. So there is but the thing is, before that there will be a lot of violence, and both sides realize that this is not getting anywhere. So that escalation will start around this eclipse. So there will be more violence and more loss of life and destruction in the Ukraine war starting this eclipse. And some people are speculating that this eclipse may trigger the use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. I will not be surprised if in the long run nuclear weapons are used, but I'm looking at 2030, 2031 time frame for that. I mean, not in the context of Ukraine, but in the context of world. Some nuclear warfare is possible in that time frame, but I don't expect such a thing in this time frame. So it may be mostly a matter of talking and posturing rather than actually doing things. So I'm not concerned about a nuclear warfare, but nonetheless, there will be a lot of destruction in the Russia-Ukraine war, both in Russia and in Ukraine. There will be a lot of destruction, and this war will slowly start to become painful for both the countries, leading to some solution early next year. And for Pakistan, unfortunately, for India's neighbor Pakistan, these eclipses are really terrible. So the political chaos in Pakistan will intensify, and particularly the economic tensions in Pakistan will reach the next level. This is really, Pakistan will really feel economic squeeze in the next 6 months, and this eclipse is really terrible for Pakistan. In general, then the next couple of years are really terrible for Pakistan. We will see possibly stuff that happened recently in Sri Lanka, stuff like that is possible in Pakistan. But in any case, Pakistan will suffer politically in terms of political leadership vacuum, and in terms of economic instability. Pakistan will really suffer for a few years, and particularly the next few months are terrible for them, unfortunately. And for Iran, the street protests that are going on right now will continue in Iran, and even though nothing tangible may come out of it, there'll be a lot of chaos, lot of strife in Iran. And also the Western posturing towards Iran will increase in this time. In my annual video, I mentioned that there will not be a new nuclear deal between US and Iran. And recently, if I followed the news correctly, I think US walked away from those negotiations of a new nuclear deal. So apart from it, US will start posturing against Iran. I mentioned in the past that Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia will be a new axis, and US and NATO will fight them in the coming years, culminating in a major war in 2030, 2031 time frame. So Iran's cooperation with the China-Russia axis will increase this year after this eclipse, and also US trying to isolate Iran and posturing more strongly against Iran will start at this time. So in terms of Iran's relations with the West, this is a terrible eclipse, and also the strife inside of Iran will continue. But I'm afraid nothing really positive or nothing concrete may come out of all those protests, unfortunately. But my moral support to friends in Iran who ask me about the future of Iran. And for UK, this is again for much of Europe. I only mentioned UK here, but actually for much of Europe, this is a very destabilizing eclipse. Especially, you may have noticed that much of Europe will see the solar eclipse, and they are at the center of this eclipse. So this is a very destabilizing eclipse for Europe. Europe will suffer during this coming winter from lack of gas, lack of fuel and lack of heating. So there will be a lot of street protests, lot of unrest in Europe. So Europe will see a lot of unrest, and UK will see increased political tensions, etc. And whoever, when list when the list when Liz Truss won as UK Prime Minister, before she won, I tweeted that whoever wins will end up being a loser because there won't be any stability and they will really inherit a bad situation, and they won't have long term success. They will basically, their career will collapse as a result of that responsibility. So it's not really a great thing to become the prime minister. I'm afraid the same thing holds now. Whoever becomes the prime minister after Liz Truss will face the same thing. Maybe not so quick, but basically they will struggle for a few months and eventually they will be booted out, possibly within a year. So this is a time of lot of political instability for UK, and finally for US. This eclipse is not good for US also, particularly the November 8th eclipse. And after this eclipse, there may be some political unrest, and the the political polarization in US will reach new heights after the November 8th eclipse. So, and also the political leadership of US may face some serious problems. There may be some health problems to Joe Biden, and some intrigue, some some intrigue in the White House. So undesirable news may come out of the White House. So it's not a good time for U.S. leadership, and also there may be a lot of political unrest and social unrest in U.S. Overall, these eclipses are pretty destabilizing for the world, but at the same time, like I always keep saying, we can't change what is destined, especially when it comes to large groups of people like countries. But all we can do is we can create a good state of mind for ourselves. We can do some spiritual sadhana so that we remain grounded, and even if there is a cyclone or hurricane going on around us, we can remain fixed, and spiritual sadhana can help with that. So I really suggest in the next few years you really need to do some spiritual sadhana so that you remain untouched by all the chaos that is happening in the world, because the chaos will only get more and more intense in coming years and peaking in 2030 2031 time frame. Now, a few words on effects on world leaders. In Joe Biden's chart, I actually talked about it in a previous video also. Some key positions in his natal chart are being touched by these eclipses. So this is a bad eclipse for him. I hope I'm wrong and he stays hale and healthy, but there is a chance of some ill health, and some he may have to basically let go of some responsibilities, or kind of back off and let others take charge in certain areas. So this is not a good eclipse for Joe Biden. And making things worse, there may be some economic tensions and also political tensions around this time. And for Boris Johnson, interestingly, the former UK Prime Minister, this eclipse is actually an interesting eclipse for him. This is a positive eclipse for him. So positive in the short term, but negative in the long term. So this eclipse may actually bring him a position of power, and he may become influential again in UK politics. But this may not live for a long time, basically. But there is a chance that he becomes the Prime Minister again. And for Narendra Modi ji and Amit Shah ji, for these two Indian political leaders, this is some key planets in their natal chart are being touched by these eclipses. So there is a chance of some attacks on them or some conspiracy against them. So I hope that Indian security apparatus will take extra precautions during this time for the next couple of months. Eclipses usually work up to 6 months, but particularly for a month or two. So for the next couple of months, they should be extra careful, and they should not be lax with the security measures, especially with all the election campaigning going on in the next couple of months. They should be very careful. But I don't expect anything disastrous. I only expect an attempt or a foiled attempt, but I don't see any danger to their life as such. But at the same time, they have to be careful so that what I say comes true. In other words, nothing happens to them. And this eclipse is Again, for Vladimir Putin, this is a good eclipse in the sense that this will make him more aggressive, this will make him more bold, and some of the opposition to him within his country, he will succeed in suppressing that opposition as a result of this eclipse. So, this is a good eclipse for him from the point of view of continuing his oppression and continuing his aggressive agenda with respect to Ukraine. So, this is a kind of stabilizing eclipse for Vladimir Putin. And for Brazil's leader, Jair Bolsonaro, this is a positive eclipse. So there is a lot of, it seemed like Lula, the previous premier of Brazil, it seemed like the previous president was gaining lead in the opinion polls for the election. That is, I think, it's actually very close to the eclipse day, lunar eclipse day. So it seemed like Lula was ahead, but astrologically, based on Brazil's chart, Brazil's lunar New Year chart, based on Jair Bolsonaro's chart, which I got thanks to a friend, Brazilian friend, I do expect that Bolsonaro will hang in there. So this is a good eclipse for him to consolidate his power and be re-elected. So I expect that Bolsonaro will be re-elected as the Brazil president or prime minister. I forgot one of them. And I only covered a few leaders for whom I have reliable charts. There are a lot of interesting leaders in the world, but I don't really have their charts, so I didn't talk about them. By the way, one word. I haven't made it a video recently because I was traveling to India and I was busy with a lot of things. I will try to make another video in a week or so, next weekend probably, and I will try to cover, instead of focusing on one topic, cover a lot of topics quickly, a lot of important developments that happened recently. For example, elections that are coming up in India and the election in Telangana, the Mungoda election, stuff like that. And economy in general, looking more closely at economy, and in US, Tulsi Gabbard leaving the Democratic Party and becoming an independent. I'll try to cover a few topics. If there is any topic that you want me to cover in that video, please add a comment and I will try to cover it. But one disclaimer is, I can cover something only if I have a basis to do so. If I have the chart of some important people or some important parameters, then only I can talk about it. Otherwise, even if I am interested in covering something, I'll just have to restrain myself if I don't have enough data, reliable data. Now, a few prayers that I suggest for this eclipse. With Rahu in the sign of Aries, I recommend worshipping Narasimha. Aries is owned by Mars, and Narasimha is an incarnation of Vishnu with the energy of Mars. So I suggest doing Narasimha mantras. There are a lot of Narasimha mantras, but I gave one here. This is a very powerful mantra. This is called, there is actually a prayer called Mantrajapada Stotram. By extracting the first word from each verse, you construct this mantra. So in classics, this is not given in one place. This is basically to be deduced from a longer prayer, but I'll just write it here anyway because you can find it on internet these days anyway. And this is a very powerful mantra, so you can chant it a few times, maybe 108 times every day around that eclipse time, a few days before and few days after the eclipse. So let me chant the mantra. Om Ugram Viram Mahavishnum Jvalantam Sarvato Mukham Narasimham Bhishanam Bhadram Mrityum Namamyaham. Om Ugram Viram Mahavishnum Jvalantam Sarvato Mukham Narasimham Bhishanam Bhadram Mrityum Namamyaham. It means Ugram means fierce, angry, Viram, brave, Mahavishnu, in form of Mahavishnu, Jvalantam, filled with fire, burning, Sarvatomukham, spreading everywhere, Nrisimham, the one who has the form of a man and lion, Bhishanam, one who is very fierce, Bhadram, one who causes auspiciousness, Mrityum, Mrityu means death, Mrityum means one who causes death to death. So one who basically avoids death and any death-like suffering. Namamyaham, I pray to him. So this is a very powerful prayer of Lord Narasimha. Shiva taught this to Parvati. Parameshwara taught this to Parvati. So you can chant this as many times as you can, and this can help you during this time. And another prayer composed by Shankaracharya is very useful. It's a little longer, so if you like shorter ones, you can use the previous one. If you like longer prayers, you can do this prayer. You can go to stotranidhi.com and click on Devanagari or whatever script you like, and then there will be Shaiva prayers, Vishnu, Vaishnava prayers, etc. Click on Vishnu, and then there will be Narasimha prayers, and then click on that, and there will be a lot of options. So this is the one. This is called Lakshmi Narasimha Karavalamba Stotram. Karavalamba means, it basically means, oh Lakshmi Narasimha, please give me your hand. Take my hand and lead me and guide me. So that is what Karavalamba Stotras are, basically praying to the God to take your hand and show you direction. So these are when you're lost in life, these are very good prayers, Karavalamba prayers. So I'll chant it, and as I said many times in previous videos, listening is as effective as chanting yourself. As a matter of fact, if I'm chanting mechanically with no feeling and you're listening with a lot of feeling, you will probably get a better result than I will. So Sravanam and Patnam are equally beneficial. So you can listen to this. And in some cases there may be Pathantaras, there may be different versions of the text, and I may just read what I am more used to, but I will try to stick to this as much as I can so that there's no confusion. Om Sri Lakshmi Narasimha Karavalamba Stotram Srimat Payo Nidhiniketana Chakrapane Bhogindra Bhogamanirajita Punyamurte Yogi Sasashvata Saranya Bhavabdhipota Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Brahmendra Rudrama Rudarka Kirita Koti Sanghattitangri Kamalama Lakanti Kanta Lakshmi Lasatkucha Saroru Haraja Hamsa Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Davadahana Kulabhikarogra Jvala Valibhiravidagdha Tanuruhasya Tvatpada Padma Sarasim Saranagatasya Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Jala Patitasya Jagannivasa Sarvendriyartha Badishastha Jashopamasya Protkampita Prachurataluka Pamastakasya Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Kupamati Ghora Magadha Moolam Samprapya Dukkhaseta Sarpa Samakulasya Deenasya Deva Krupaya Padamagatasya Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Bhikara Karindra Karabhighata Nishpidya Manavapusha Sakalartinasya Prana Prayana Bhavabhiti Samakulasya Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Sarpa Vishadagdha Mahogrativra Tashtragra Koti Paridashta Vinashta Murte Nagari Vahana Sudhabdhi Nivasa Shaure Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Vruksha Maghabija Mananta Karma Shakhayutam Karanapatra Mananga Pushpam Aruhya Dukha Palinam Patato Dayalo Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Sagara Vishala Karala Kala Nakragraha Grasita Nigraha Vigrahasya Vyagrasya Raga Nichayormi Nipiritasya Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Sagara Nimajjana Muhyamanam Deenam Vilokya Vibho Karunanidhe Sansara Sagara Nimajjana Muhyamanam Deenam Vilokya Vibho Karunanidhe Mam. Chandas is broken here, but I can't figure out what it should be, so I'll just read it as is. Sansara Sagara Nimajjana Muhyamanam Deenam Vilokya Vibho Karunanidhe Mam Prahlada Kheda Parihara Paravatara Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Sansara Ghora Gahane Charato Murare Marogra Bhikara Mruga Prachurartitasya Artasya Matsara Nidagha Nipiritasya Lakshmi Narasimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam Badhva Galeyama Gatha बद्ध्वा गळेयमभटा बहुभर्त्सयन्ति कर्षन्ति यत्र भोपाशशतैर्युतं मां याकाकिनं परवशं चकितं दयाळो लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बं लक्ष्मीपते कमलनाभसुरेश विष्णो यज्ञेश यज्ञमधुसूदन विश्वरूप ब्रह्मण्यकेशव जनार्दन वासुदेव लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् एकेन चक्रमपरेण करेण शङ्खम् अन्येन सिन्धुतनयाम् अवलम्ब्य तिष्ठन् वामेतरेण वरदाभयपद्मचिह्नं लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् अन्धस्य मे हृतविवेकमहाधनस्य चोरैर्महाबलिभिरिन्द्रियनामधेयैः मोहान्धकारको निवहे विनिपातितस्य लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् प्रह्लादनारदपराशरपुण्डरीक व्यासादिभागवतपुङ्गवहृन्निवास भक्तानुरक्तपरिपालनपारिजात लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् लक्ष्मी नृसिंहचरणाब्जमधुव्रतेन स्तोत्रं कृतं शुभकरं भुवि शङ्करेण एतत् पठन्ति मनुजा हरिभक्तियुक्ताः ते यान्ति तत्पदसरोजमखण्डरूपं संसारयोगसकलेप्सितनित्यकर्म सम्प्राप्य दुःखसकलेन्द्रियमृत्युनाश सङ्कल्पसिन्धुतनया कुचकुङ्कुमाङ्क लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् आद्यन्तशून्यमजमव्ययमप्रमेयम् आदित्यरुद्रनिगमादितनुप्रभावम् अम्भोधिजास्य मधुलोलुपमत्तभृङ्ग लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् वाराहराम नरसिंह रमादिकान्त क्रीडाविलोलविधिशूलिसुरप्रवन्द्य हंसात्मकं परमहंसविहारलीलं लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् माता नृसिंहश्च पिता नृसिंहः भ्राता नृसिंहश्च सखा नृसिंहः विद्या नृसिंहो द्रविणं नृसिंहः लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् प्रह्लादमानससरोज विहारभृङ्ग गङ्गातरङ्गधवलाङ्गरमास्थिताङ्क शृङ्गारसुन्दरकिरीटलसद्वराङ्ग लक्ष्मी नृसिंह मम देहि करावलम्बम् श्रीशङ्करार्यरचितं सततं मनुष्यः स्तोत्रं पठेदिह तु सत्त्वगुणप्रसन्नं सज्जो विमुक्तकलुषो मुनिवर्यगण्यो लक्ष्मीपदमुपैति सनिर्मलात्मा यन्माययोज्यतवपुः प्रचुरप्रवाहः मग्नार्थमत्र निवहोरुप्रावलम्बं लक्ष्मी नृसिंहचरणाब्जमधुव्रतेन स्तोत्रं कृतं शुभकरं भुवि शङ्करेण श्रीमन्नृसिंहविभवे गरुडध्वजाय तापत्रयोपशमनाय भवौषधाय तृष्णादिवृश्चिकजलाग्निभुजङ्गरोगक्लेशव्ययाय हरये गुरुवे नमस्ते नमः श्री लक्ष्मी नृसिंहकरावलम्ब स्तोत्रम. And before I end, not related to the eclipse, I just want to share a recent composition by me on my website, personal, my compositions. Recently, I composed a prayer on Ganesha. I just want to share with you. Going to be helpful at all times. So I composed a prayer called Ganeswarashtakam in a meter called Sadhana on the Ganesh Chaturthi day, Vinayak Chaturthi day recently. I just want to share with you. Om Adrijasu Putrakam Marditasu Shatrukam Rudrashula Khanditam Bhadrasila Manditam Aibhavakta Shobhidam Saiva Bhakti Toshitam Vignanakti Bhaswaram Stomitam Ganeshwaram Siddhi Buddhi Samyutam Siddhachara Nachitam Ashramoni Yogi Hrutsu Sarvadani Vasinam Vajjitari Shashtakam Nashtapasha Kashtakam Vignanakti Bhaswaram Stomitam Ganeshwaram Vakrabuddhi Mardanam Vakpatutva Vardhanam Vyasakavya Lekhakam Sravya Gita Moditam Shishtacharu Vartanam Hrishtamata Nartanam Vignanakti Bhaswaram Stomitam Ganeshwaram Bhakta Kashta Bhanjanam Pragnachitta Ranjanam Yogi Mauni Bhavitam Akhuvaha Nanvitam Sarva Dosha Marshanam Vignabhi Vikarshanam Vignanakti Bhaswaram Stomitam Ganeshwaram Shrikulatri Bhedakam Varitarti Khedakam Bhalachandra Kambhavam Bhavegamya Kevalam क्षिप्र सुप्रसादनं विप्रदीप्रदीपनं विघ्ननक्ति भास्वरं स्तौमि तं गणेश्वरं विघ्नकन्धि कुम्भजं विघ्नहैम हर्मुटं विघ्नरोगभेषजं विघ्नसर्पताक्षजं विघ्नमीनछोटिनं विघ्नदारुकागिरं विघ्ननक्ति भास्वरं स्तौमि तं गणेश्वरं चन्दनादिचर्चितं सर्वदेवतार्चितं कार्तिकेयसोदरं मोदकप्रियं वरं शिष्टभक्तवत्सलं सृष्टिहेतुनिष्कलं विघ्ननक्तिभास्वरं स्तौमि तं गणेश्वरम् अन्तहीनमच्युतम् अन्तरायकृन्तनं रक्तवस्त्रवेष्टितं रक्तिशक्तियुक्तिदं मौक्तिकान्वितं हितं मौक्तिकस्य मुक्तिदं विघ्ननक्तिभास्वरं स्तौमि तं गणेश्वरं गणेश्वराष्टकं भक्त्या यः पठेत् बुद्धिमान् नरः तस्य विघ्नविनाशस्य कार्यसिद्धिर्भवेत् सदा. And you can see the meaning also. So you can chant if you are interested. And I hope that you can take advantage of these prayers and you can remain calm during these chaotic times. And like I said earlier, don't panic if the nakshatra, your nakshatra Rasi is mentioned, or you have key planets at the longitudes that I have mentioned. It doesn't necessarily mean something terrible is going to happen. It just means that something important may happen, good or bad, and the probability is higher than normal probability if you have those combinations. That's all basically. It really needs micro analysis. So you don't jump to conclusions based on macro analysis and panic. So panic is never useful. So I hope that these eclipses go eventlessly for you and you keep your calm and your life is continuing as usual. And also I hope that some of the negative expectations I have for the world around this eclipse time is unwarranted. Thank you very much. Om Tat Sat Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu Yavad Bhumandale Sanatana Dharmo Vardhatu Visheshatah Bhartakande America Avashe Tibet Rashtre Cha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.